Each year, about 2 million Americans report being victims of workplace violence. That is a lot of people, but you know what? That's likely an undercount. Workplace violence incidents can devastate a small to mid-sized organization, especially its best assets, the people who work there. They increase staff turnover and absenteeism while lowering employee morale and productivity. A violent incident at your workplace can also harm your organization's reputation in the community, all of which can lead to lower sales and revenue. You'll also pay higher insurance premiums and quite well may face the possibility of expensive litigation as a result of the significant incident of workplace violence. In this video, we'll cover some tips and practices designed to prevent workplace violence from happening. While no approach is foolproof, once you've implemented these practices, you will immediately reduce the risk that your staff and organization will encounter violence. Hi, I'm Mike Corwin. I help small and mid-sized businesses, nonprofit organizations, and government agencies to reduce their risk of workplace violence, allowing your staff and your organization to thrive. Want to protect your staff and your organization but don't even know where to begin? Download my free workplace violence prevention checklist. This easy-to-use checklist covers some steps that you can take today to reduce the risk of workplace violence from each of the 4 different sources that we're going to cover in this piece. Just click on the link in the description below to download it right now. Did you know that there are 4 main sources for workplace violence? And that the approaches you take in order to prevent workplace violence should be based upon the types of sources that are the greatest threat to your organization. Though you should know that the tips in this video are tips that you can use in a variety of situations. If your staff works out in the community providing services to people such as in their homes, such if you're a home health aide, a social worker, a tradesman, utility worker, even a real estate agent, or if your staff provides services such as outside sales or other services and you act as a vendor to businesses at their location, then the most important safety focus for your organization should be to develop and implement situational awareness and de-escalation skills for these individuals. Situational awareness is the awareness of the environment around you, including the people within it. Situational awareness helps your staff to actually avoid a threat to their safety rather than having to engage in it. And they do so by using their senses to recognize a possible threat far enough in advance in order to create the ability to avoid that threat. Or the earlier you can recognize the threat to your safety, the more time you're going to have to create a plan and to go ahead then and avoid that threat. The easiest way to learn situational awareness and to make it automatic is to describe in as much detail as you can what you are able to see and hear in the environment around you. For example, I see a green car parked along the curb on the same side of the street where I'm walking. I can see that 2 people are sitting in that car and that it'll take me about 20 steps to reach that car. Or if it's an indoor circumstance, you could say something like, the front door enters into a family room area that leads to the kitchen. The kitchen has a back door on the opposite side of the room that opens out to the backyard. That door slides from right to left. There's also a window that slides up and down over the sink 4 steps to the right of the door. There's a second entryway into the kitchen that leads to a dining area. There's a large table in the middle of that dining area which constricts the traffic flow through that room. Practice doing this process at each and every location you visit, and if you want, you can test to see how well you're doing by taking out your smartphone and videoing what you are seeing while you're describing it. Then go ahead and watch the video and see if you missed anything while describing what you see. You want to include people, buildings, lighting, vehicles, and any obstacles or obstructions such as shrubs that you can encounter in your description. Now, the second essential element to reducing workplace violence risks when your staff works in the community is to implement de-escalation techniques. De-escalation is meant to calm a situation down before it can become a threat to your safety. And the most important skills when it comes to de-escalation are the ability to listen and the ability to redirect a person's focus away from their agitation. For example, if you're a caregiver working with a client in their home who's suffering from dementia, who gets agitated, and when they get agitated accuses you of stealing, stay calm, and instead of reacting angrily at having been falsely accused of stealing, redirect that person's anger by asking him a question that will cause him to have to respond. When you get him to respond, it reduces the likelihood of his lashing out physically, as it's difficult to speak and react physically at the same time. The next source of workplace violence involves someone who in the normal course of business is invited to your workplace, such as a patient or their family, a client, a customer, or a vendor, among others. When it comes to invitees, there are 3 elements that can help to quickly reduce the risk of violence. 1, don't allow a person to trap you by standing between you and an exit location. So for example, if you're a nurse in an exam room, arrange the exam room space so that you are closest to the door when you're working with the patient. Position any chair off to the side so that you face and work with the patient. You are actually closer to the door. If you are both seated, then make sure that the patient is further away from the door than you are. In addition, being able to communicate any sense of concern that you have about a situation to another party in your workplace, such as a supervisor, without appearing to do so is really beneficial. For example, a front desk person can use a pre-designated code word over the phone or intercom, or can press a button that is wirelessly connected to a doorbell or light in the back work area, and in that way a supervisor can see or hear it. Pressing once can simply mean, please come up front, I can use some help with this person. Pressing it twice can mean, call 911 now. The third aspect of this is the buddy system. As you bring that supervisor or other coworker up, the person who's agitated, one, may actually feel, hey, they're really hearing what I'm talking about and they're bringing somebody in who can really help me. Or 2, they can just think in the back of their mind, okay, now there's 2 people. It's a little bit harder to go off on 2 people than it is on 1 person, so I'm going to go ahead and calm down. The third source of workplace violence is what we typically think about as workplace violence, and that's coworker on coworker violence. And for the most part, this is a grievance-based violence that develops over a period of time. And in many cases, there were multiple complaints brought to supervisors or others about bullying or other forms of harassment before this violence takes place. Therefore, the best way to prevent this type of violence is to have a complaint and investigation procedure that instills confidence in your staff. The more the process is clearly articulated and standardized, the more likely people are to use and to trust this process. And this approach prevents the belief that no one listens or cares, or worse, sweeps a complaint under the rug when it's brought forward. Complaints should be submitted in writing and should include information about the alleged incident or incidents, and it should have the names of anyone who may have information, including possible witnesses. Once the complaint has been received, the person complaining should be interviewed by a person trained to conduct third-party neutral investigations, and during the interview they should get complete details and also try to identify anyone with information, potential witnesses, and also possible resolutions. Next, the responding party should be interviewed for that same type of information, including any other potential witnesses and resolutions. Once all that information is obtained, an analysis of the information should be done and a determination regarding what happened in terms of the fact pattern, and that information should be used to determine if discipline is warranted or what types of resolutions you can do. Finally, the last source of workplace violence comes from an area we may not suspect, and that's actually from domestic violence that impacts your staff. Current and former partners and family members can be a major risk for workplace violence. The domestic violence victim, even one who has reported her abuser, still needs to work in order to earn her money. And that creates a known fixed location for an abuser to be able to track her down to confront her. In fact, for women, homicides are the second leading cause of death for them in the workplace, and domestic violence is the main driver of those homicides. To reduce the risk of this type of workplace violence, it is critical that your organization have a policy that encourages reporting to management incidents of domestic violence, including those leading to obtaining orders of protection. That way, staff can be notified to keep an eye out for a potential attacker and who to alert if that person is seen at the location. Parking lot safety is also crucial to preventing this type of violence, as parking areas are typically more accessible than the physical workplace. It's critical that potential obstructions that can create both a hiding place and obstruct the view of a person hiding should be removed as soon as possible. In addition, the buddy system that we talked about earlier can be used in order to escort the domestic violence victim to her vehicle while screening the area for anyone that you can see that can be a threat. Do you want to protect your staff and your organization but don't know where to begin? Download my free workplace violence checklist to help you get started keeping your staff and organization safer. This easy-to-use checklist covers some simple steps that you can take to reduce the risk of workplace violence from each of the 4 different sources covered in this piece. Just click on the link in the description below to download it right now.